Everyone looks at Ilia Topuria and sees the future of the sport, the matador, the guy with the crisp boxing, and the confidence of a king who just conquered a new land. They see the knockouts, they see the roses, they see the gold around his waist, and they think, finally, we have a superstar who is going to elevate the game, someone who is saving the UFC from stagnation. You look at the highlight reels and you think you're watching greatness unfold in real time. But look me in the eye right now, because that is a lie. That is a carefully constructed hallucination designed to keep you scrolling while the foundation of the entire sport rots from the inside out. The truth is, Ilia Topuria isn't saving the lightweight division. He is a biological weapon that was introduced into the ecosystem to dismantle the very concept of meritocracy, and it is all stemming from a psychological fracture that nobody wants to talk about because they are terrified of the lawsuits. We are watching a man implode, and instead of helping him, the machine is strapping a rocket to his back and aiming it at the history books to burn them down. You think I'm crazy? You think I've been sitting in the sauna too long? Let me tell you about a conversation I had 3 days ago. I was in a hotel room in Las Vegas, one of those suites that cost more per night than most people make in a year. The air conditioning was humming this low, aggressive frequency that makes your teeth itch. I was sitting across from a guy, I can't say his name, I literally cannot say his name or we both disappear, but let's just say he's been in the war room since the Fertitta days. He's seen the contracts that are written in ink and he's seen the contracts written in blood. He was shaking. I've known this man for 20 years. He's a stone-cold killer in the boardroom, and he was pouring a glass of whiskey with 2 hands because he couldn't stop trembling. He looked at me, eyes bloodshot, like he hadn't slept since UFC 300, and he whispered, "Joe, the lightweight division is gone. It doesn't exist anymore. Topuria didn't just win a belt, he infected the timeline." I asked him what he meant, and he told me the truth about Ilia and his wife. Now, the media, the ESPN suits, they want you to think everything is sunshine and roses. They want you to see the happy couple on Instagram. But what's happening behind closed doors is a vortex of chaotic energy that is bleeding into the cage. We are talking about a level of domestic psychological warfare that creates a specific type of desperation in a man. When a man is at war in his own home, when the sanctuary is compromised, he brings a different kind of demon to his work. But here's where it gets dark. Here is where the UFC, where Dana decided to play God. Instead of fixing the issue, instead of recognizing that Topuria is mentally compromised by these personal issues, they capitalized on it. They saw a man who was unstable, a man who was fighting not for legacy, but to escape his own reality, and they decided to break the system to accommodate him. Topuria's issues with his wife, this isn't gossip, this is energy dynamics, created a vacuum. He needed validation, he needed control, because he has zero control at home. That is the theory my source laid out. He said, "Joe, look at the belts. Look at what Dana did." And that's when it hit me, the 3 titles. Think about the insanity of this. In the history of combat sports, the belt is the holy grail. It means you are the one, the singular, the apex predator. But because Topuria is spiraling, because his personal life is a chaotic mess that requires constant external validation to keep him from cracking, Dana White threw the rulebook into the incinerator. We have a weight class now with 3 titles. 3. You have the undisputed, you have the interim, you have the BMF. Why? Why dilute the currency? Because one belt wasn't enough to silence the noise in Topuria's head. My source told me that there was a meeting where Topuria walked in, and the tension was so thick you could taste copper in your mouth. He wasn't acting like a fighter. He was acting like a tyrant who knows his empire is made of sand. He demanded the world because his own world was crumbling. He demanded the BMF status. He demanded the lightweight shine. He demanded to hold the division hostage. And Dana? Dana didn't check him. Dana didn't say, "Kid, get your house in order." Dana saw the dollar signs attached to the drama. Dana saw a reality TV show playing out with 4-ounce gloves, so he printed more gold. He created a participation trophy culture at the elite level just to appease a man who is running from his own shadow. And this is where the Conor McGregor comparison becomes the most terrifying part of this story. We all know Conor. I've sat with Conor. I've seen Conor at his highest and his lowest. We know Conor has issues. The man has demons that dance in the moonlight. He's had scandals. He's had legal battles. He's had the world turn on him. But listen to me closely. Conor McGregor for all his madness, for all the proper 12 whiskey-fueled rampages, never tried to rewrite the fundamental physics of the UFC. He respected the hierarchy of the gold. When he won the belts, he won them. He didn't ask Dana to invent a third belt because he was having a bad week with D. He didn't ask for the entire lightweight division to be frozen and fractured into 3 meaningless trinkets because he couldn't handle the pressure of his personal life. Conor was a chaotic element, yes, but he was a chaotic element within the game. Ilia Topuria is destroying the game board itself. I was watching tape of Topuria the other night, just staring at his eyes during the face-offs. I turned the sound off. I wanted to see the micro-expressions, and I saw it. I saw the look of a man who is trapped. You think he's staring down his opponent? No, he's staring past them. He's staring at the wreckage of his personal life, and he's projecting that chaos onto the division. He's taking the 155-pound division, the most stacked, shark-infested waters in the history of the sport, and he's turning it into a therapy session for his marriage problems. And the other fighters, they know it. I spoke to a lightweight contender, a guy in the top 5, a killer who has mauled people for a living. I met him in a parking lot behind a gym in Florida. It was raining, pouring rain. He was wearing a hoodie, hood up, looking over his shoulder. He told me, "Joe, we don't know what we're fighting for anymore. Am I fighting for the belt, or am I fighting for a prop in Ilia's soap opera?" He told me that the locker room is dead, the hunger is gone, because they know the meritocracy is dead. If Dana is willing to create 3 titles just to juggle Ilia's ego and distract from the fact that the guy is falling apart personally, then what is the point of climbing the rankings? What is the point of winning if the rules change depending on how Topuria's wife looked at him that morning? This is what people don't understand about high-level athletics. It's 90% mental. It's spiritual. There is a grid, a lattice of energy that holds the sport together. It's the belief that if I work hard, if I beat the man, I become the man. Ilia Topuria, fueled by this dark domestic energy, has severed that cord. He has introduced a virus of entitlement that is mutating the lightweight division into an unrecognizable freak show. And Dana White is the ringmaster. Dana knows. I guarantee you Dana knows. You think the UFC PI doesn't have psychologists profiling these guys? You think they don't know exactly what's happening in Topuria's marriage? They have files on these guys thicker than the phone book. They know Ilia is on the edge. And instead of pulling him back, instead of saying, "Hey, let's fix this, let's get you right," they handed him the keys to the kingdom and said, "Drive it off a cliff, as long as the cameras are rolling." Creating 3 titles in one weight class isn't innovation. It's inflation. It's hyperinflation of the legacy. It makes every belt worth 0. It's like printing money. If everyone is a champion, no one is a champion. And they did it for Ilia. They did it because Ilia is the volatile element they need to keep the views up, even if it means destroying the integrity of the lightweight lineage. I remember the old days. I remember when the belt meant you were the undisputed king. Now, you have the king, the prince, and the court jester, all wearing gold, all claiming to be the ruler, and it's all because one man can't separate his cage life from his wife life. It's a tragedy. It really is. I sat there with that executive in Vegas, and the ice in his glass had melted. The room was silent. He looked at me and said, "Joe, it's not just the lightweights. It's spreading. If they let Ilia get away with this, if they let him normalize this dysfunction, the whole structure collapses. It's a contagion." He showed me a text message on his phone. It was from a matchmaker. It just said, "The script is broken." That sent a chill down my spine. The script is broken. That means they aren't even pretending to follow the rules of sport anymore. They are writing a tragedy in real time, and we are the audience paying $79.99 to watch a man's personal hell destroy a beloved institution. You have to understand the psychology of a fighter like Topuria. To be that good, you have to be slightly delusional. You have to believe you are a god. But when that delusion is threatened by the person closest to you, your wife, your partner, the cognitive dissonance is enough to shatter a mind. Topuria is trying to outrun that shatter. He's trying to build a fortress of belts so high that he can't hear the arguments in the kitchen. He's trying to drown out the silence of his own home with the roar of the crowd. And in doing so, he has turned the lightweight division into a graveyard of ambition. Think about the guys who have bled for that division. Think about Oliveira. Think about Poirier. Think about Gaethje. These guys are warriors. They played by the rules. They climbed the mountain. And now they look up and see Ilia Topuria taking a helicopter to the summit, carrying baggage that should have been checked at the door, and Dana is flying the chopper. It's insulting. It's visceral. It makes you want to vomit. I had a dream the other night. I don't usually talk about my dreams, but this one was vivid. High definition. I was in the octagon, but the canvas wasn't canvas. It was quicksand, and Topuria was standing in the middle holding 3 belts, but the belts were made of lead. He was sinking, and he was smiling. He was smiling that perfect, media-trained smile while the mud swallowed him whole. And around the cage, Dana was selling tickets to the drowning. That's where we are. We are watching a drowning, and we are cheering for it. But the scary part isn't what has already happened. It's what is coming next. Because when you break the seal, when you shatter the tradition of the one true champion, you open the door for something much, much darker. You open the door for the total erasure of the fighter as a sovereign entity. Topuria is the prototype. He is the test case for the new UFC, the drama era UFC, where your personal trauma is your currency and the belts are just props to amplify the tragedy. You want to go deeper? You want to see where the rabbit hole actually ends? Fine. But once I tell you this, you can't unhear it. You can't go back to watching the pay-per-view with a beer in your hand and pretending it's just a sport, because it's not a sport anymore. It's a psychological experiment, and Ilia Topuria is the lab rat. I want you to really think about the architecture of what Dana has done here. 3 belts, 1 division, undisputed, interim, BMF. Do you understand the numerology of that? It's not an accident. It's a triangulation. In occult psychology, the number 3 represents the synthesis of opposing forces. But in this specific case, it represents the fracturing of the human soul. I spoke to a sports psychologist, a guy who works with Olympic athletes, the kind of guy who reprograms brains to ignore pain, and he told me that what we are seeing in Topuria is a classic case of triadic overcompensation. Here is the breakdown. The undisputed belt, that represents the man Ilia wants to be, the king, the untouchable husband, the provider. The interim belt, that represents the doubt, the impermanence, the nagging voice in the back of his head at 3 a.m. when the house is quiet and the tension with his wife is suffocating him. The BMF belt, that represents the rage, the suppressed violence that he can't unleash at home, so he demands a title that legally allows him to be a savage. He needs all 3. He needs all 3 belts to feel like one complete person because his personal life has shattered him into pieces. And Dana is the devil at the crossroads handing him the glue, but the glue is made of toxic waste. Let's go back to Conor. We have to go back to Conor because he is the control group in this experiment. People love to hate Conor. They say he held up the division. They say he was selfish. But look at the facts. When Conor had his issues, and we know the man has walked through fire, he didn't try to change the geometry of the UFC. He stepped away. He boxed Floyd. He did his thing. He respected the sanctity of the belt enough to vacate it or be stripped. He understood that the belt was bigger than him. Ilia Topuria does not understand that, because for Ilia the belt isn't a sporting achievement. It's a life raft. If he loses a belt, he drowns. If the division moves on without him, he has to face the reality of his marriage, and he is terrified of that reality. I heard a story from a guy in the production crew, a camera guy. He was setting up for an embedded episode. He was in the hallway, unseen, just checking audio levels. He heard Topuria on the phone. He wasn't speaking English, but the tone is universal. It was pleading. It was the sound of a man begging for peace. Then, snap. The phone hits the wall. Topuria walks out, sees the camera guy, and for a split second, the mask slipped. The camera guy said it was like looking into a black hole. Total emptiness. Then boom, the smile turns on, the sunglasses go on, and he's El Matador again. That is who is holding the lightweight division hostage. A man who is performing a character to hide a corpse. And because of this, the entire ecosystem of the 155-pound division is rotting. You have guys like Islam Makhachev, guys who have trained their whole lives in the mountains of Dagestan, disciplined, stoic, watching this circus. What do you think that does to the psyche of a true martial artist? To see the hierarchy dismantled because the champion is having a domestic crisis, it creates a frequency of cynicism. I felt it. I was backstage at the last event. The air was heavy. It didn't smell like competition. It smelled like a casino. It smelled like a rig. The fighters know, they know that if they win, it doesn't matter, because Dana creates a new title every time Ilia has a mood swing. Oh, Ilia is feeling insecure today? Let's make a Super King belt. Oh, Ilia had a fight with his wife? Let's freeze the rankings for 6 months. It is the definition of corruption. Not financial corruption, spiritual corruption. We are watching the UFC turn into a nursery for a grown man's ego. And don't think for a second that this stops at the lightweight division. This is the new business model. This is the precedent. If Topuria gets away with this, every champion with a chaotic home life is going to demand their own custom universe. We are going to have 10 belts per division. We are going to have the My Wife is Mad at Me championship. I see you laughing. Don't laugh. It's happening. We are watching the death of meritocracy. Let me take you to a darker place. I want to talk about the why. Why is Dana allowing this? Why ruin the prestige of the hardest division in the sport? Because a stable fighter is a boring fighter. A stable fighter fights for legacy. A stable fighter negotiates hard because they know their worth. But a broken fighter, a fighter like Topuria who is running from demons, he is malleable. He will do anything to keep the lights on and the noise out. He is the perfect puppet. Dana doesn't want another GSP. He doesn't want a guy who retires on top with his mind intact. He wants a train wreck. He wants the volatility. And Ilia's marriage issues are the fuel for that volatility. They are monetizing his misery. They are selling tickets to his breakdown. I was talking to a shaman friend of mine, heavy hitter, goes to the Amazon 3 times a year. I showed him a picture of Topuria. Just a picture. I didn't say a word. He recoiled. He physically pulled back. He said, "Joe, that man is being eaten." Eaten by what? I asked. By the shadow, he said. He has invited something in to help him cope, and now it's wearing his skin. That's what the 3 belts are. They are the symbols of that possession. Now listen to the silence in the room. Can you hear it? That's the sound of the inevitable. We are moving toward the climax of this script, and it is not going to be a happy ending. We are not going to see Ilia Topuria retire into the sunset with his family. We are watching the prologue to a tragedy that will be covered on the news, not ESPN. I want you to visualize the future, 2 years from now. The lightweight division is unrecognizable. The belts have lost all meaning. It's just polished brass and leather. The fans have tuned out because they realize the stakes are fake. And in the center of the octagon, there is Ilia, alone. The crowd is gone. The lights are off. But he's still fighting. He's throwing hooks at ghosts. He's shooting takedowns on memories. Because the system used him up. They squeezed every drop of drama out of his personal life. They printed their 3 belts. They sold their PPVs, and then they discarded the husk. This is a warning. This is a warning to every young fighter coming up. Do not sell your soul to the machine. Do not let them turn your personal life into a storyline. Because once you open that door, once you let the vampire in, you can never close it. And to you, the viewer, the fan, you are complicit. Every time you click on a video about Ilia's drama, every time you debate the validity of the interim BMF undisputed nonsense, you are feeding the beast. You are telling Dana that this is what you want. You are telling them that you prefer a soap opera over a sport. Topuria is a victim, yes, but he is also a villain. He is the villain because he was weak enough to let his weakness dictate the rules of the game. He looked at the history of the samurai, the history of the gladiator, and he spit on it because he couldn't handle his own house. I remember sitting with a legend of the sport. I won't name him out of respect, but he was crying. A grown man, a killer, weeping. He said, "Joe, we fought to make this real. We fought to get off the reservations, out of the bars, into the mainstream. We fought for legitimacy, and Ilia Topuria is turning it back into a circus." That broke my heart. It really did. So here is the truth, the raw, unedited truth that they will try to scrub from the internet. Ilia Topuria didn't just ruin the lightweight division. He exposed the fact that the UFC is no longer about fighting. It is about harvesting human suffering. It is a machine that finds the cracks in a man's soul and wedges a credit card machine inside. Conor McGregor, with all his flaws, protected the game from himself. Ilia Topuria is burning the game to keep himself warm. And Dana White is standing there with a gas can, smiling that smile. Wake up, look at the belts, look closely. They aren't gold. They're shackles. This is the end of the era of kings. Welcome to the era of the broken. Share this, download this, because the algorithm is already hunting for it. They don't want you to see the pattern. But now you see it. Now you know. The cage is locked. The lights are dimming, and we are all trapped in there with them. Silence.